Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friend Mike Brady from Oceanliner Designs. Now, if you've ever looked closely at photographs of Titanic and her sister ship Olympic in around 1911 or 1912, you've probably noticed that there are a lot of different flags flying from the ship at different times. Now, the flying of flags on ships can be for purely ceremonial or decorative reasons as dictated by traditions, or it can be for more regulated reasons, or perhaps mandated by an authority like the government or the Board of Trade. So today, why don't we have a look around the flags that Titanic flew and get an understanding of why she carried them in the first place. First of all, the largest flag carried by the Titanic, and probably its most distinctive and well-known, was the Blue Ensign flying on the stern of the ship. This is actually a derivative of the Red Ensign, which is a British merchant flag nicknamed the Red Duster. This is a flag carried and flown by all British merchant ships since 1801, with previous versions dating back to about 1620. The dusters are flown from the stern of a ship if its port of registry is in Britain, as in the case of Titanic. The Blue Ensign was issued and flown if the captain and at least 10 other officers or ratings of the ship were members of the Royal Naval Reserve. In Titanic's case, this included Captain Edward John Smith, who held the rank of commander, Chief Officer Henry Wilde, who was a lieutenant, First Officer William Murdoch, who was also a lieutenant, Second Officer Charles Lightoller, a sub-lieutenant, and so on. Because of this, Titanic flew the Blue Ensign during daylight hours. These flags were huge, about 15 feet long and 6 feet high. Here I am for scale. There are about 4 of these flags carried on the Titanic for frequent rotation to avoid the inevitable wear and tear. Next, probably the most iconic flag flown on the Titanic was the house flag of the White Star Line. This was a crimson-red burgee, a swallow-tailed burgee, which is a type of flag, and featured a centered white star in the middle of it. Now, this identified the ship's operators and owners, the Oceanic Steam Navigation Company, aka the White Star Line. The flag was actually surprisingly big. It looks really small in photographs, but in reality it was about 6 feet tall by 9 feet long. The flag was flown on halyards, which are a type of rope on ships intended for raising flags, sails, ladders, and the like, attached to the mainmast, which is the mast towards the stern of the ship. It was actually only flown during daylight hours, from 8 AM to sunset, when it was hauled down and stored overnight. Meanwhile, up on the foremast, things were a little bit different because a number of different flags were flown here, including the United States Ensign and the French Ensign. Now, this was actually a courtesy flag flown as a mark of respect, because when a ship enters the harbour of a foreign country, it's actually considered quite disrespectful and something of an insult to not fly the flag of that country during daylight hours. Now, the Titanic, in her day-to-day operations, was expected to visit the waters of 2 foreign nations. That is, of course, France, when she stopped at Cherbourg, and the United States, when she arrived in New York Harbour. Interestingly though, Titanic flew the Stars and Stripes when she left Southampton to mark out her ultimate destination, but this flag was hauled down just after she left. Titanic briefly flew the French Ensign at Cherbourg before sunset, and then at Queenstown, Ireland, which was her last landfall, she was flying the Stars and Stripes again, and the flag was hauled down before she left. Just below the house flag, you would have found the Royal Mail and the US Mail flags. Titanic was a carrier of British Royal Mail and United States Mail, and as such, she was entitled to carry flags to denote this status when docking or departing. These flags would have flown low down from halyards on the mainmast, but only while she was in port. Meanwhile, up at the very tip of the bow, there was actually a space to fly a very special ceremonial flag. This flag was known as the pilot jack, and it was originally used back in the day to summon a pilot who would be able to guide that ship through unfamiliar waters when entering a harbour, for example. By Titanic's day, the flag had actually been superseded by an internationally recognised signal flag, so this was actually still flown, but only for ceremonial purposes. The pilot jack is essentially just the British Union Jack surrounded by a thick white border, and it was kept for special occasions, such as when the ship was dressed. Dressing the ship involved rigging dozens of colourful signal flags along the ship's entire length for decorative special events. Titanic was briefly dressed on April 4th for her first arrival in Southampton. Flag lines were rigged from stem to stern, and at her foremast the Blue Ensign was flown, while at the very tip of the bow the pilot jack could be seen. There was actually a very small hole at the very tip or prow of the ship where the jackstaff or flagpole could be fitted, and this was the jackstaff from which the pilot jack would be flown. Titanic also carried a full set of signal flags intended for communications with nearby ships. There is an entire alphabet of these which can be combined to spell out individual words letter by letter, but sometimes flying only one of these flags can convey a special meaning. The flag for the letter P was also known as the Blue Peter, and this was a flag which, when flown by itself, indicated that all people should report aboard the ship as soon as possible, that it was about ready to depart. Titanic probably flew this at Southampton just before she left. Now, between the foremast and the first funnel was rigged a heavy line so that halyards could be run from the bridge, and this is where the signal flags would be flown from. Titanic and Olympic both had their own special distinguishing signal as well. This was a 4-letter code which would be flown from the bridge halyards to identify the ship to another ship or shore station. Titanic's was HVMP, Olympic's HSRP, and Britannic JMDK. Although I don't think I've seen any photographs of the ships actually flying these flags, it would have been quite a rare event and probably just a holdover from before the days of wireless telegraphy communication. So there you have it. While at sea, Titanic probably only flew the Blue Ensign at her stern during daylight hours, and no other flags, meaning that on the night she sank, she would probably have been totally flagless. Titanic adhered to the flag protocols of her day, and many of these are actually still in place. If you see a British ship in port today, she will probably still be flying the Red Duster. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friend Mike Brady from Oceanliner Designs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel. Every bit helps, and I put out a new video every week, so you'd hate to miss out. If you'd like to support my work, please subscribe to me on Patreon, or you can sign up for a YouTube membership for perks like early access, behind the scenes, and many more. You'll find the link in the description below. As always, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you again next time.